Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Office Hours. It must be Tuesday because we're all here. This is the hour of the week where we spend our time answering your questions about Alexa development and voice interfaces and all sorts of other things. So welcome, Ryan. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys. As we do every week. This is the only hour I get to spend with Scott every week, but Ryan and I spend plenty of time together.
Too much. Too much.
But I'm glad you're both here. One of the things, as we wait for a few questions to come in here, it looks like we've already got a couple. Nice. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today is something that I posted in our Slack community this morning also. We released a new feature that is A/B testing. So there is now the capability inside the Alexa console, whether you use Smappy or something external or you're in the developer console itself, to create your own A/B testing, which allows you to not only modify to create tests to run against like a different backends if you want to test what your responses and interactivity is going to look like, but you can also do that against your interaction models. So you can swap out like maybe how your slots work or maybe how your intents look. And so in each of those cases, you can build tests, you can set measurements against them, durations, all that kind of stuff, and then see what the comparison is. Did people buy things more when I said it this way or when I said it this way or whatever it might be? So if you haven't had a chance to check out A/B testing, I'm pretty excited about this. This is something I'm going to try and get my hands into this week, just to play with a little bit more and get a feel for how I can really use this. Ryan, I know you and I talked briefly just before this. Do you have any other thoughts on the A/B testing stuff?
No, and I haven't got my hands on it yet either, and I'm very eager to. I know that and a lot of tools, and I come from like a marketing background. I've been doing MarTech for a long time, and so A/B testing is just one of the tools of the trade that's just like you have to have, right? And it's always good to just be constantly iterating and testing your messaging and constantly working on it. So I think this is going to be a tool that I would love to see developers just constantly using and updating and constantly running tests and measuring and constantly improving. So I'm really excited about this because I think it's a nice, safe way. Like, what if this utterance works better? Let me send 10% of my traffic to that, measure that, and then determine if it is better or not. And then just to be constantly doing that, but doing that with confidence that you're able to really measure this. So I'm excited about it. Yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on it.
I even want to try little things like which voice performs better, which one do people stick with more, right? Just little minor changes like that, I think, could have a big impact on how you think about building your skill.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, that leads me to a question for you, Scott, because this is something that came to me in Slack this morning, and I was curious to know your opinion on this. This is an opinion thing. It's not there's no right or wrong answer to this one. But someone submitted a skill, and it has ISPs in it, and it's been over a week, and they haven't heard anything back during certification. Their question was, if I use ISPs or something like that, and this is the first time he's certified, right? Not the second or fifth or anything like that. So when I'm submitting a skill for the first time that has ISPs, should I expect certification to take longer?
Probably. This is something. So ISPs are always going to be a little bit more technical. There are a couple different policy steps that they have to go through as well. Because now you're talking about, whatever money is involved, you've got to talk about, you got to check with other different parts of the policy people. So I would imagine, yeah, probably, but not too much longer. I mean, so when we're really rocking and rolling and where everybody's all staffed up and everything's good, it might not take more than an extra day, but sometimes it will take an extra 2 or 3 days. I wouldn't expect it to be like a month-long process.
Yeah.
But then again, I also can't speak to what's going on with our certification teams either. So so it should be, yeah. I mean, I imagine it would take like an extra day or so, but not much longer than that.
Okay. Yeah. The response that I gave, this was mostly from my experience, is that if it's the first time you're submitting a skill, it's going to take longer.
Yes.
And if it includes things that could potentially be sensitive, like purchasing or child-directed skills or anything else that would involve any kind of security or privacy, that includes things like account linking, I would expect as you add those layers on, you are introducing more time to certification because those things need to be tested thoroughly. And like you said, look at policy and other stuff like that. So
a lot of that stuff can be tested on the same team. So they've found really cool ways to expedite a lot of that same testing because it used to take months. but they've narrowed it down. They've narrowed it down now to be pretty quick. So
Awesome.
yes, you're absolutely right. All that stuff tacked on, if it's your very first skill. So yeah, likely it'll probably take a little bit longer than like the normal 3 to 5 days, 5 to 7 days.
Yeah, I always say 48 to 72 hours is reason. Like that's what you should expect.
I'd say like 5 to 7 days.
Okay,
that's like a nice round number.
5 to 7 days. All right, I will
probably before that, but it's not bad to overpromise and
change my message.
Under promise and over deliver.
Yes, right. Agreed. All right, so now we're going to get into the chat here. We have a question from Strike Kicks on YouTube, and they want to know how to personalize answers according to the question the user asked in their skill, and specifically in Python. So I don't know that we're going to be able to give you a specific code sample right now to solve that problem. I'll give my quick take on this. You are looking for a situation in which a user can ask your skill a question, and you can provide it with a specific answer. There's a number of ways to do this that are kind of language agnostic, because as you build an Alexa skill, you define an interaction model. That interaction model defines the things that a user might say, which might be a list of questions. And so you can specify like, hey, if they ask this question or a question, phrase it in a question like this, well, that's going to be intent A. And then your code finds out like, oh, they asked about intent A, and then you give the response for whatever intent A happens to be. If they ask a question like question B, then you hit intent B and you can move on and on. There's a couple of options with this that you can do. A custom skill is obviously one of them. But if you're just building a simple Q&A skill, especially if you are not distributing this broadly, we actually have an Alexa blueprint that you can use that's a Q&A skill that you can write a bunch of questions, write a bunch of answers, and it'll respond. I use this in my house for things like what is the Wi-Fi password, or what's the address of the house, or what's mom's phone number. All of those are built right into a Q&A skill. And so when my kids can't remember that stuff, they're old enough now that they have it stored in their phones or they just remember. But when they were younger, 6, 7 years old, it was nice for them to be able to just say, hey, what's mom's phone number? And Alexa would tell them. Or when their friends came over and said, what's the Wi-Fi password? And you can publish those more broadly, but it's pretty rigid in what you can do with that. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and see if Ryan or Scott has anything to add to that.
I set up that blueprint to offer a status report on like ship systems, like Shields, Warp Core Drive, that kind of thing. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what type of personalization you're looking to do. And I'm looking through our repositories and we have a GitHub organization, Alexa Samples, that has a bunch of different repositories. And there's predominantly more Node.js than there are Python, but there are a lot of Python repositories in there. But there's not one specifically on personalization. But I think one of the things, like once you've built your custom skill, there is a Python SDK, so you can actually go through it. And actually, there's a new workshop that I just published that has like a Python path, so you can go create a skill and if you follow the workshop, it creates it completely in Python. You can choose your path, and in there you could just it's an updated version at time, but you could go in there and find different places where you'd want to do different personalization. And in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, there is part of this. Let me actually put a link in. I'm talking about this. I was hoping that Jeff would just pop up the link to the workshop, but
my bad.
That's all right. Here, I got it. I'll paste it in here. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I'm just realizing that in module 6, one of the last modules, what you do is you actually go through and you do a little bit of personalization. And the personalization it's a greeting for different time of day. And again, there's a Python example in here. So what it does is it looks at the device settings, calls the API, and if it's morning, then it says, good morning, otherwise good evening, or whatever. So there's an example of how to do personalization of text responses that you can then send back to the Echo to actually play. So that might get you started. If that's what you're looking for, you could easily just look at any of the incoming variables and determine what it is. Simple things like, or more complex things you could do is like look at the history of requests from individual users. You can grab the like user ID from the request and start storing in a database and building out a like repository of like what that person has asked for. And then you could use that to infer future responses. Or if you want to get really crazy, you could build integration with Amazon Personalize and start feeding it behavioral data and information. And then you can make a call there to say, give me the personalized recommendation for this particular user. So you can go to any extent that you want with this. It just really depends, but there are the tools to do that. So I could build a backend that would respond completely different for me than it would for Jeff and Scott, if you want to put that much effort into it. So it just depends.
Got it. No, that was good. Thank you. All right, the next one is from Brian Tarbox. He has APLA pages, APLA responses that say soccer stuff while playing background noise. And then he also has APL pages that show graphs. Is it possible to play that background noise in an APL document, in an APL page? Can he send both an APLA and an APL directive at the same time? Also, he tried using SSML audio tag in the speech part of his APL response, but that didn't work. What is the best way to do this? What he is trying to do is play audio in the background of an APL document that has been sent. While I haven't tried this myself, I do believe this is possible. And what I don't remember, though, is if this is sending like he's describing, sending APLA and APL as separate documents attached to the same response, or if there's a way to embed APLA inside an APL document. That's the piece that I don't remember.
Is this for like playing a response while the music is still going, so that she doesn't cut the music off, say something, and then restart the music?
No, it's more like APLA, the uses that I've seen for it primarily are to provide background noise. So let's imagine you're doing some kind of like interactive story and you're walking through the woods. And so even as Alexa is talking or as you see things on the screen, you can have this ambient noise that sounds like you're walking through the forest or birds chirping or whatever. APLA gives you the ability to provide that kind of background audio independent of the response or anything else.
Okay.
But I don't remember, and I feel like I really should know this.
Yeah, I know the Skyrim one does that. The Skyrim skill does that.
I feel like you can't have an APL and APLA document at the same time. I feel like those are just for two different scenarios. But I'm trying to validate that through the documentation. And we have a lot of documentation on APL, so I'm having...
Yeah, it's a lot to dig through, and I feel bad that I don't... I mean, I really should just know this off the top of my head, and I don't.
I'm trying to think of like of a skill that I've experienced that has had a time where you are able to speak and have music still going at the same time, or have sounds still going at the same time. I swear it was a Skyrim one, but it's not. I can't remember.
If anybody in the chat is like, "Oh yeah, you can do this."
Yeah, where's Steph?
Mr. Furstenberg says, "I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that you can have both and have them reference each other." And A. Witter says you can include APLA inside an APL document. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
So, okay, that makes me feel better that I was at least in the right direction. And then A. Witter's also provided this URL to APL Ninja, where an actual example of this is shown.
That's where I started to pull up APL Ninja to see if they had an example of this. Yeah. But A. Witter beat me to it. It's awesome.
I feel like I've earned my paycheck today. I was at least right, even though I wasn't confident in it. So for those of you that are on Twitch, you can just find us in the comments. For those of you that aren't, I would recommend going to APL Ninja and just look for the talking slideshow with APLA. You don't need to copy this URL. But that would be my recommendation if you want to find a sample. And it says, can I use an audio clip or just text? I would think you should be able to use both because you were really just embedding an APLA document. And so if you can do an audio clip in APLA, which you can, or if you can use text in APLA, which I believe you can, then either of those should work for you. Yeah. Okay. I got to scroll back up. I had to dig deep for that one. Gavin Watson says he had a skill go through certification in 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yay. Yeah, that's great. And a complete demonstration of how unpredictable things are right now. Really good demonstration.
there's a lot of variables.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on what the skill is or what it's going. And of course, now he's gonna. I'm sure in moments he's going to post about how incredibly complex it is and how it should have taken months.
Right.
But it just depends on the skill.
I had 400 ISPs built into it.
Yeah,
and it was only for kids.
Account linking radio fact skill from the future,
and it was adult themed content. I didn't think it would.
Yeah, directed at kids. No, so it just depends. I mean,
right. Agreed. Gavin also wants to know. Gavin's on Facebook, by the way. Is there a forum like this? I think he's talking about office hours for Amazon apps, the Android App Store for Amazon. I am not aware of an office hours. And in fact, I just got connected with the person that plays the role of me and Ryan on the App Store team just a few days ago, and got to know him. And he seems like a pretty cool. He's actually based in the UK. But seems like a pretty cool guy. And if I'm not aware of office hours that he's doing, but that's an interesting idea. I will pitch that to him and see what I can come up with for you on that. But no, I'm not aware of one today. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. That just means I'm not aware of it. All right. Hello to Fabio on YouTube and Don on YouTube. So Don has asked, if you guys recall, this is for you two that I'm talking to here. Don has been working with us over the last couple of weeks. He's had the issue where he tried to install Amazon Pay as his payment service, and the certification team keeps coming back and saying, no, you need to use account linking. You can't use Amazon Pay. And all of us have been very confused by that, and I've tried escalating some things internally unsuccessfully. But in all of that, he's asking if, in fact, would it be possible to use PayPal instead of Amazon Pay? And has anyone done an Alexa PayPal integration before? My understanding is that if you venture out of Amazon Pay or in-skill purchasing, you are now in a world that requires account linking, because there is no direct PayPal integration to Alexa skill development, which means the user, this now maps to, like, I always use Domino's Pizza as an example, but it now maps to that. Domino's Pizza can have any kind of payment processing they want. If they wanted to accept Bitcoin for pizza, they could, because they can do whatever they want on their services with their servers, with their payment processing, whatever. The only thing that you really have going on in your skill between Domino's and their systems is account linking. And so you would then have to have a user have an account someplace else. You would do some account linking, and then when you wanted them to make a purchase, you would pass that off to your existing payment processing, PayPal, whatever, that they would have already had to set up on your existing accounts. And then you could push PayPal. But to get out, like, this is why, Don, this is why this one's driving me crazy, is because the whole point of Amazon Pay is to simplify all of it so that you don't have to go through all of those hurdles. So I think you asked, should I pursue? Is it a wasted effort? That is the thing I would do, almost out of spite, if I can't get this Amazon Pay thing to fly. And I, for the life of me, cannot figure out why they won't let you fly with this Amazon Pay thing. But I feel like I still want to explore this a little bit, because it doesn't feel like everything I understand suggests to me that you should be able to use Amazon Pay independent of having any accounts separately or externally or anything like that. So yes, you can do it. It's a ton of extra work that I would hate for you to pursue if you don't have to, though. So that's my perspective on that one today. All right. That one just bums me out because I can't figure out how to get the right answer. But I'll keep working at it. Sago on the screen. Nice.
This is Loki.
Loki.
Yeah, this is my dog Murphy. My dog's name is Murphy, and this is his brother.
This is also Loki.
Yeah, we got them both at the same time. Actually, we didn't get both of them. This is our friend Luke has got Loki after he saw Murphy's puppy pictures, and decided to go ahead and get Loki. And so now we have him come over like every weekend or so.
Nice.
And he comes over, and they've been growing up together. So it's really great.
That's very, very cool. Mm-hmm. To jump back into our customizing questions, Fabio did add in on YouTube that you can use the yes/no intents. to be able to ask something and treat the answer. If you're asking yes, no questions, you could then customize around that. But I think Skrillex needs to give us a little more about what they're trying to do or what they're trying to personalize so we can customize our answer a little bit better. But I think that's probably the best approach so far. All right. Fabio wants to know if blueprints are available for Brazilians. I think so. I don't know of a reason why they wouldn't be. You can go to, let me see. I don't know if I have a banner for this or not. I don't. Let me create one really quick, just so you can see it. How often do you mistype Amazon to be Amazon? I do it all the time.
I do Amazon. AMAZONZG.
So if you want to try out Alexa blueprints, you should go to blueprints.amazon.com and you will find them all there. You can also, not only can you create blueprints just for yourself on your account, but you can also publish them. And so an example of this, I was just at a conference called Code Mash a few weeks ago, and they have a kids part of the conference, and I gave a talk to about 40 elementary, middle school kids, and we wrote a story using one of the blueprints as a group. I don't know if I've talked about this on here or not, but each kid got to contribute at least a sentence to the entire story. So one kid would be like,
so cool.
There's a dragon in a castle. And then the next kid was like, and an alien showed up and killed the dragon. And it would just continue to go and go and go. And like, it was a just nonsense story. But the kids had a lot of fun putting it together, and it was hilarious and a good time. Anyway, they were like, hey, how do we hear our story when we get home and listen to Alexa at home? And so I published the story. I actually just published it a couple days ago. And so now they can listen to the story by saying open pickle battle. So if you guys want to hear that story on your own time, because there was all these pickles that showed up and they kind of looked like the aliens and they were confusing. It was a whole crazy nonsense. Anyway, if you want to hear that story, you can go to pickle. But you can publish those skills publicly out to the world without having to code anything, right? It's kind of cool that way. Okay, that's enough about blueprints, but hopefully they are available in Brazil. I don't actually know the answer to that, but I would imagine that they are.
I hope they are.
I think they are, but I'm looking it up right now.
Thanks.
We'll find out. Because once you release Alexa into a new locale, you get all of it.
Right.
But I'm not necessarily. That doesn't necessarily mean you get blueprints.
Don said he gathered that PayPal would require account linking. He would much rather use Amazon Pay. 1, he's already built it. 2, it's less friction. But he goes, but I don't mind taking the spite path. So thank you so much for your interest and help. All right. Well, hopefully we can solve this for you. Alan also appreciated that I had a Lego Loki on hand, ready to respond.
Like ready to go.
Oh,
like
this
you
is
planned that.
And what's weird is this has been living in like the little top pocket of my backpack for months. I think I bought like a little like mystery bag probably in November, whenever the last time I was in Seattle. I bought it and I threw it in my bag and I was like, oh, that one's kind of cool. And then didn't think anything of it. And I was just cleaning my bag out yesterday and I was like, oh yeah, there's Lego Loki. And so I set it here on my desk and then boom, Loki comes up and we're ready to go.
Certainly have a Funko Pop of Loki, right?
Do I?
Oh,
No,
serious?
I mean, I do.
What?
I don't know if he's in here.
Isn't that one? That one right there?
That doesn't help, Scott.
No, it doesn't help at all.
So this is from Loki. Yeah. But I don't know that I have an actual Loki down here. Now, keep in mind, we are not seeing the whole collection on screen.
Now, even like a variant of Loki, like, come on.
We have several Lokis in this house. I just think they're not here in front of the camera.
All right.
I'm a little disappointed in myself, actually. Okay.
Sorry.
So,
I didn't mean to call you out. I didn't mean to.
Yeah. Ryan's very upset at you. He just sent me 5 text messages. He's very upset at you, Jeff.
I know.
Yes. It's disappointing.
All right. And so Agency 2, who I've had many a conversation about, he's very interested in the food ordering aspects of Alexa. And he said we should be able to pay our favorite restaurant just like we do tap and swiping credit cards with our voice. 100% agree. You've talked about the food ordering kit. I don't think we've released it yet, but we have talked about it at Alexa Live last year. And then he also talks about how he had an issue where, because he's using Amazon Pay for his stuff, I feel like my phone is ringing, but I don't see it. Regarding Amazon Pay, he has an issue where his developer name has to match his seller name, and that he needs a confirmation letter from the intellectual property rights holder with a formal signature. And he wants to know if there's a template for this letter so that he doesn't have to run around in cycles. This feels like maybe Scott might have some insight on this. I don't know.
Not likely. Generally speaking, they're not going to try to help you with any kind of legality. Not that they don't want to help you, but it's just that, to be honest with everyone, it's like the grand majority of the reason why these skills get pushed back because of their form of payments or something like that is just because we're kind of waiting for local laws to catch up with the technology.
Sure.
So it just depends entirely on the state that's inside America, the state or the local laws that allow for payments to be taken in certain ways. And so they're probably not going to provide any kind of legal advice, and providing a template for you to fill out to send to your local representatives would be considered legal advice, regardless of the fact that it's just a template letter. Although, if you wanted to reach out to something like LegalZoom.com, they would probably be able to craft you a letter in no time flat. You're absolutely right in pointing out that this is a pretty simple operation that you're proposing here. It's actually not that big a deal, but you'll probably want to have somebody look into it for you, like an actual. I always recommend people go to a lawyer if you have a chance or a need to go to a lawyer, and there's like a slight possibility that you should.
Yeah.
They'll be able to craft one for you, but Amazon doesn't offer anything like that, huh?
No, and understandably, right? I mean, the easier we make it, the more likely you're going to end up with forgeries and other weird.
Precisely. Yeah.
No, and so it's unfortunate, and I think we talked about this once on Office Hours before, but it just seems like the more and more modern we get with technology, the more bad actors make everything hard for us. And I just think back to like my first websites that I built in 98, 99, 2000, and like the levels of security that we have today around websites, like just the table stakes to just like set up an e-commerce website are so dramatically big compared to what we built before, which was like, no, just type your credit card information here. And like, that was it. Like, surely you could have just hacked our stuff apart and like injected all sorts of things and been super messy. And bad actors have made everything way harder, unfortunately.
I mean, sometimes websites, if you just smash the buttons, you might get past their whatever paywall thing. If you just type real fast or like jam a bunch of weird stuff in there, all of a sudden, then you might overwhelm the website.
I just did that the other day. Ryan and I were talking about an article that was on behind a paywall. So I refreshed the web page, and then I hit Control S the moment the page loaded, because the paywall was actually JavaScript that got in the way.
Right.
Once the page loaded. And so I hit Control S the instant I saw anything, and it just saved the HTML source code to my desktop, and then I had the whole article. And it was like, guys, you got to be better than that.
Yeah.
That just shows that their like paywall stuff is just bolted on. It's not integrated into their system. Anyway, never mind that I probably stole content. Anyway, that's regardless. So someone just had Gavin on
that's awesome.
Said, Jeff, my son and I were talking about your pops. Could you do a quick full screen of them all? So guys, I'm going to bump you for 1 second. There's your full screen. I'll even get out of the way. Take your screenshots now. All right.
Only the important things on Office Hours.
I know. And the thing is there's an entire, let's see if I can tilt this easily without breaking everything. There's an entire shelf above that one with more. But anyway, back to everybody.
Oh, thanks.
Right after the cloud went away, I flipped it for you, Scott.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Sure. Anyway, so that is that. Fabio also wants to know what happened with Alexa yesterday. She was a little weird. I heard some weird things on Sunday night. Scott, are you aware of any weirdness?
Well,
Sunday
yeah.
night.
So it's been a little rough. She's kind of going through a time right now. She's something's going on with her boyfriend. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't ask. She's just a little distant. I don't know. She seems okay though. Still hanging in there.
So we have, I have these lights. These lights.
Here, we're
Wrong
going.
side. It's
going
mirrored. I don't like it. I have these lights in here, but in my kids' room we have a bunch of other wall lights. And Sunday night they were going to bed. You can bring everyone else back. And
no, he feels
why am I? Oh, all right. So anyway, Sunday night the kids were going to bed and they couldn't get the lights to turn off because they couldn't get Alexa to respond, and like they were like freaking out. So like I showed them like you can just go and just unplug them, and, like turn like you can manually unplug them, and everything's fine. So my kids learned that you can actually get up and do that. So they learned a valuable lesson Sunday night.
That's good.
The world we live in.
I know.
They're like, I don't know what to do. I can't turn off the lights.
Just learn to unplug a light.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Let's see.
Star Trek music is playing.
Bay Banhara on YouTube says, I got the mail yesterday about name-free invocation, but I cannot see any of my skills that are eligible for it. Can you please explain how it works?
Name-free invocation.
I feel like I always just jump into these. Ryan, do you have any thoughts on this before I go?
Yeah, so I was actually just sitting in on a session about discovery, and name-free invocation is one of the things that came up. So the whole idea behind name-free invocation is that in order to get to a custom skill, the user has to kind of go through this sometimes awkward path of saying like, Alexa, open like skill name, right? And so the whole idea behind name-free invocation is that you can provide it with sample launch phrases. So if you're building a weather app, you could say, this is probably a terrible example because we have our own weather app that's going to collide with this. But okay, let's do Star Wars. Let's Star Wars data bank, right? Mm-hmm. You could do a launch phrase to say, Alexa, tell me about Han Solo, and that could, instead of saying Alexa, open Star Wars data bank, you could, the name-free invocation would be tell me about Han Solo or tell me about blah, blah, blah. And so that could route to your skill, so that we're giving customers, end users, a more natural way to get to your skill. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where it's still being like developed and polished and reworked. And where you're going to see name-free invocation, my understanding is today you're going to see name-free invocation coming to your skills more for users who have been to your skill, but maybe forgot about your skill. Way to bring users back to your skill more naturally. It is used also for discovery, but I think what the impact you're going to see most is getting people back to your skill who may have forgotten about it. But it's creating a more natural way of getting to your skill, so they don't have to remember your skill name, and that whole process.
That's exactly right. And so the question that he specifically asked was, one, how does it work? You did a fantastic job with that. How do I see which of my skills are eligible for it? And so my understanding is that I got an email also on January 28th, 4 days ago, about my skill United States quiz. This was one of the first skills I ever published. But the email specifically was about that skill. And so while this may not be unlocked for every skill, so you can't just look at your list and be like, oh, that one has NFI available. You should have received an email saying, hey, you should use NFI for this skill. And in that case, you should be able to do it. And in fact, let me see if I can open up that skill. We can look at
it. I can talk about these emails that go out, right? At like really high level.
Yeah.
So these emails are really, really, really cool. So there's a team developing these recommendations to notify developers of like what recommendations they can make. And in order to do this at scale, they're actually using different artificial intelligence algorithms to evaluate the skill and make these recommendations. And so this was something that is still relatively new, and the recommendations aren't always 100% on target. And so sometimes you'll get a recommendation that doesn't quite fit, but it's because we're using like machine learning to make these recommendations. It will get better over time. So if you get a weird recommendation, just don't worry. No one's actually looking at your skill, making a bad recommendation. But this is really, really cool. I'm really excited about this. And one of the things I'm going to do is see if there's ways that my team or myself can create, really engaging content to kind of help with this.
Yes.
So
it looks like I was not able to find the skill that has the NFI stuff. So I can't show it, although I would love to. So I will be more prepared next week, and I will have that ready to go.
But if you go into the skill and go into the skill launch phrase, it should tell you there if it's.
Well, it does
eligible,
do
right?
So if I go into the skill here, I'll share my screen just to show you guys what this looks like. Share screen.
I don't have any published skills, so I need to work on that. I am working on that.
We do need to work on that. Yeah,
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm on my way.
So it's this. You guys can see my screen.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sure I sound a little staticky because my computer is sharing.
You need to fix that.
You can see here that in my skill, under the build tab, I have skill launch phrases. If your skill is eligible to use this, now nobody uses this United States quiz skill, so I'm not surprised that this isn't here. So it's giving me this warning, hey, you're not eligible to do this. But for skills that do have some traffic, you should be able to provide this. In fact, let me find a skill that I do know gets a little traffic. What if I go to English US? Change anything? Okay. Let's go back. I have... So I built this skill, Slot Genie, when we first introduced built-in slots. So this was a long time ago, and I was thinking this might have it, but it does not either. Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen, but I'll tell that quick story.
Whoa, that was awesome!
Inception.
You showed us the multiverse.
So
amazing.
Slot Genie was meant to be able to give people an opportunity to use a skill and test all of the different built-in slot types. So you could say the name of a book and it would be like, oh, you said the name of a book. Like it would let you test and see like, hey, if I say something, does it know what slot this goes into? It was kind of just a fun experimental developer thing. And I've let it live on, and it hasn't been touched. The source code has not been touched in probably 3 years. But I built a mechanism into it so that I get a text message if somebody says something that doesn't match one of those slots.
Ooh.
And so every once in a while, I'll just get this flurry of text messages because it's capturing people that are trying to play a slot machine. So a skill called Slot Genie is capturing people that somehow said, I want to play a slot machine or something like that. And it ends up in the Slot Genie skill, which again was just meant to be like a diagnostic tool for built-in slots. And then I get a text message with every one of their responses that's like Wild Cherry or like whatever kind of other slot machine game they can think of. They're just trying to find one. And the skill is probably saying something like, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. Here's what I can do instead. And then you see things like, please exit this skill. Or like they're saying things that aren't enough to get them out, but enough to trigger yet another query against my thing. And so every once in a while, I'll just get some text messages from the skill. So I thought it might have enough traffic to do that. But
that is impressive.
Yeah, but that's what's got me thinking that I'm going to break up my casino into individual skills so that people that are looking for slot machines can say something like slots and they end up in the video poker one goes to whatever, but they all could link together with a skill connections and stuff like that. So something to figure out as I'm going through this. Okay, back to questions. Brian Tarbox wants to know if I can, since I don't yet have access to the widget program, the private beta developer preview that exists right now. I'm creating a kiosk slideshow mode for my skill and hoping to use person recognition to trigger this mode when the show 15 sees me. What are your thoughts on this? You can, correct me if I'm wrong here, we talked about this a few weeks ago. You can programmatically create a routine with your skill today, I think. Is that true?
Yes.
I think it's... and because of that, you could create a routine that would be triggered by person recognition to launch your skill. That would be doable. And you could launch it to a specific event inside your skill so it ends up on the right screen or whatever. So yes, that's doable. It might also be better to coach the user into saying like, hey, if you want to do this, create a routine by doing X, Y, Z, and then this will show up every time you walk in front of the device or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a perfectly reasonable solution to the problem that you face today, which is that I don't have access to the widgets program. But my sincere hope is that the widget's public beta will be around soon, and at that point, you'll be able to do this the proper way, which is to introduce widgets on the device in the way that we see widgets today. The follow-up question from everybody will be, well, Jeff, when is that? I don't know. I hope it's soon, but I don't actually know.
Someday,
right? This is not the information you're looking for. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Naranja Dilshan on YouTube says, hi, I've recently published an Alexa skill, but it's not available in the Alexa skill store. Can someone tell me how long it will take to get into the store? My personal experience in publishing skills is that you get the email, congratulations, your skill has been published. And it's a solid 8 hours. Solid. Before you can go search and find it in the store. Now, you can click on the link in the email and it will go directly to it. But for you to find it in the store can be a little while.
Yeah, it's got to roll out. It's got to populate.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that need to happen across a number of like propagation points to get that data to the right place. So it can take a little while. It's going to be longer than you want, but it should be, I would think, less than 8 hours. That's the most I think I've seen it take.
It should be ready. Like it should take it'd be immediate, but yeah, no, we've taken that clock back a bit because of the populations. There's a lot of international stuff that they do and like a whole bunch of others. Yeah, 8 hours is a good estimate.
Yeah.
But it also depends on what the question is. So this was one that I get a lot actually, is why can't I find my skill in the store? And there are a couple different things, a couple different possibilities. If it's been more than 8 hours, then and you still can't find it, check your preferred marketplace, which is the little flag at the top of, if you go to Amazon.com and click on this, right next to the search bar, there's a little flag that should designate your home country. And if you are releasing a skill in like Germany and you live in the US, then you will need to change that to the German flag to find your skill in the store. If you're only releasing it to one locale, then you need to go to that locale. Otherwise, and also sometimes you might not find it. Refresh, do the normal internet thing that everybody absolutely hates to hear, which is sign out, sign back in, clear your cache and cookies, do all the thing, unplug it, plug it back in, and then do it again. You'll
one lap around the house.
Yeah, this happens a lot. It's fine. It's one of our most common cases. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that's good. W. Giorgio, if you guys recall, he has a skill called Cards of Wonder.
Yeah.
And his skill was having issues when he was trying to sell things in his game for fake coins, right? So there's no real monetary transactions here. It's just, hey, I'm trying to sell this thing. He's identified the problem to be that he's actually exceeded the size of an APL document, which is what
that's impressive
was throwing. And I think the challenge is that if you continue to post the same APL document, it does continue to like load that cache up with more and more stuff, which would then exceed your file size. And so A. Witters recommended changing the APL document name in your responses. And I have seen people do things like this, where when you upload the document itself, the file name that you use or wherever you pull that stuff from, each time you give that file a new name that has a randomized string of numbers or something on the end, that can potentially force it to clear the cache because it's now only going to use the new one and it's not going to add on to the existing document that was already there. That is one way that I would consider that, but I don't think that there's like a clear APL directive that you can send in to just blast everything out. So I think that's my recommendation is modifying a document name should kind of force that, but we should look into the docs to see if there is a guidance on how to handle that specifically. Because I know there are times where I've built APL documents, I send a response, it shows the APL on the screen, and then future interactions like my casino don't have APL interfaces, right? It's just like, hey, go start a new game over here. And until you've spun the wheel or pulled the handle on the slot machine, there isn't more APL to show, but the old APL just kind of lingers and still stays on the screen. So it feels like there should be a command that allows me to say, enough with that APL, go away. And that might be the solution. Either a clear directive or a document name change. Document name change feels a little hackier, but potentially.
That seems, yeah.
Alan Furstenberg is asking questions and predicting my answer, which I like. He wants to know when Matter support will be coming for IoT and will it allow for total local control of devices? And then he says, and Jeff will then say he can't predict the future. You're totally right. I am not even.
He can. Fun fact: he can predict the future. He's just not allowed to.
I do. The number of times Ryan and I have been back channeling during a conference call, and I'm like, "Here comes." Like that is a thing. But
yeah,
no, I don't have any answers for you on this. Nor would I be employed if I could tell you. So, I don't have a good answer for you on that one.
It is stuff. That's stuff we're talking about. That's stuff that's coming. As far as I know, as far as like reading the blogs, like just keep up with the blogs and you'll see more Matter announcements coming and things like that.
Yeah. I think the expectation is, so I'm reading ahead. Don is asking about name-free invocation. Do skills have to be specifically designed to use name-free invocation? And does it use can fulfill intent or something like this? I believe it's independent. And I believe that the way we're thinking about name-free invocation for the most part is as an additional launch phrase. So it's just going to launch your skill. It gets people into your experience. But I don't think that the NFI stuff allows you to have like slots or what we often refer to as a one-shot, where I have an intent that I want people to be able to say, like a good example of a one-shot is with my Star Wars skill. You could say, ask unofficial Star Wars databank about Luke Skywalker, right? The skill isn't even open yet, but with that command, I can tell it, open the skill, and by the way, hit the intent that gives me information about Luke Skywalker. And it'll jump right to that. It won't do the welcome. It won't do the opening, all that stuff. It'll just go, hey, you asked me about Luke Skywalker. Let's go. I don't believe that NFI gives you that capability. All NFI does is gives you a bunch of sample phrases that you can use so that then if a user says one of those things, these are generally more generic things that would potentially land them in your skill. But I think it always ends up hitting your launch intent before it hits anything else. Launch request, sorry. That's
but we want that. I think we want that future, right? Where you can, because the challenge we have right now is we're in this state where if you just ask Alexa questions, then it's up to Amazon developers to predominantly give you those answers. And there's a lot of skills that give better answers than what we've come up with because there's people who specialize in those different things. So the end goal is that you're just talking with Alexa and it's routing to wherever the best answer is. Figuring that out and figuring out how to do that with quality and making sure that people are getting, like, it's a really, really hard problem. So I think we're going to see, I'm hoping to see this evolve over time and name-free interaction becoming more and more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
Because I think what it's going to be is like, I want to know about Luke Skywalker. It's going to go to Jeff's skill, and then, well, what's the weather on, what's the weather today? And then it's going to go somewhere else, right? Like this whole, like, I'm going to go into a skill, do something, and then leave. I'm hoping that the barriers of that just get fuzzed as we go over time.
Yeah.
Is that the technical term? Fuzzed?
Yeah.
Blurred.
It is very technical.
Blurred is what I was looking for. Yeah. But it's hard. It's really, really hard. So
Fabio on YouTube says, whoa,
Sorry.
we have more resources for US skills. Can I create my skill using US? I think he means US English. And afterward, add a second language that is Portuguese Brazil, and then promote only the second one, the Portuguese Brazil one. Yes, but I don't think you're getting what you think you're getting. So in my head, when I read this, what I hear you asking is, hey, there's a bunch of other technologies and capabilities that are available in English US. I want to use those things in my skill. So I'm going to create it in English US. Then I'm also going to create it in Portuguese Brazilian, Portuguese Brazil. And somehow I think you have it in your mind that you'll be able to use some of the capabilities that are only available in ENUS. When you add additional languages to a skill, you are, for the most part, creating a completely separate skill. It's just that you're grouping them all together in one bucket. They can all use the same endpoint or not. They can all use the same invocation model or not. But because of that, you are really just building a Portuguese Brazil skill. You are not able to take advantage of any of the benefits or technologies that might only be available in ENUS. So I hate giving that news because I know that there are a lot of things that people outside the United States really want to be able to take advantage of. and they just aren't rolled out there yet. But unfortunately, no, that would not work for you, unfortunately. I don't have the answer for this one, Tristan. How can I be part of the Alexa Guard trial in the UK? I don't know. Alexa Guard is not a developer feature, as I recall. So, and for those of you that don't know, Alexa Guard is the capabilities to hear things like breaking glass and dogs barking and babies crying and stuff like that. I don't know the rollout capacity of that globally. So I don't know if it's available in the UK or how you would sign up for that, unfortunately.
Didn't they do most of that testing in the fake apartment they have in downtown Seattle?
They did. The what do we call that? What is Travis's?
I do not remember the name of that thing, but we have a whole house up on the top floor.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's basically a sample smart home.
Yeah.
It has all sorts
full working
of
kitchen, full working bathroom you're not allowed to use.
Nobody's allowed in there. Like, you can't go in there.
Yeah, but a guy on our team, his name's Travis, he owns that room. And it's been very cool to be able to just kind of go in there and play with stuff and try things out. He had an Astro robot rolling around in there the other day. He had one of these Echo Show 15s way before anybody else did. Because a lot of the executives in our company have taken very special interest in what that room looks like and feels like and everything. And there's lots and lots of tours that run through there. So yeah, it's a very cool space. Okay, so on YouTube, back to the NFI question. He wants to know that if someone has not enabled their skill and they say, Alexa, open my skill, will that work? Yes, it should work. The only time that you would not find a very positive experience there are the times where your name is really common. A good example is CatFax. I know there's like 80-something CatFax skills. So if you say, Alexa, open that, I'm not going to say it. But if you say that, then it's going to pick one that it think is the most qualified for you, either based on your enablement history or on its usage. And so it's not likely that you'll land on exactly the one you're hoping for. But if you have a relatively unique name, yes, Alexa, an open skill or Alexa enable skill should do exactly what you're hoping for. Will the Amazon App Store be available on Echo Show devices? Well, that is a fantastic idea, but I'm not aware of any programs or momentum around that happening. But it's an interesting idea. I like it. I feel like there should be more overlap between what's happening on Fire TV devices and Kindle Fire devices and Echo Show devices. I feel like there should be more overlap, but currently there does not seem to be a ton of that today. All right, next one from LinkedIn user. I don't get to see LinkedIn user names. Is there any way a user can call one of his contacts from a skill, or would the skill have to close and then the user has to call his contact? There are two ways that I've seen this done. One is, yes, exactly as you described. You can make a phone call from an Echo, but you are not inside a skill to do that. There's no way to trigger a phone call from a skill. But if you exit the skill, you can call Scott and it'll work just fine. The other side to this from inside a skill is that you could use a service like Twilio or some other telephony company, and you could make API calls that call each of the individual users and connect them. And you can that's all pretty easily done with an API. And so you could be talking to a skill and say like, hey, I want to talk to my dad. And it's like, okay, here's dad's phone number. Here's my phone number. It puts them together, creates a connection, calls both ends. You both answer and you're both like, hello. You're both receiving an incoming call. Mm-hmm. You could do something like that. That would be very doable. I don't know then what happens with your experience in the skill because now you're talking on the phone instead of talking to the device, but that's beside the point. You could very easily connect a phone call. You could also do that with two people that aren't you. So as long as you had those two phone numbers and the API call, you could, hey, have mom call my sister, right? Like you could do that. But that comes more from some third-party API that we don't offer that capability ourselves. So that's
Amazon Connect. Amazon Connect will do that.
Well, but I guess Alexa doesn't. Yeah, there are lots and lots of.
We are bigger than just Alexa, Jeff.
We are.
I don't know. But yeah. There's a bunch of services that will do that. But the problem with the Alexa is that from the skill, you don't get the audio from the user. So you can make an outbound call to your grandma, but you wouldn't be able to deliver the voice to her. So that's why using a third-party service to connect is really the only way. But I cut you off, Jeff.
No. You're absolutely right. There isn't a way to do audio, although I do feel like there should be a handoff process because there is a baked-in phone call service to Alexa. So I should be able to say, as part of the skill, hey, make this phone call. It kills the skill session, connects the phone call, and now I'm just using it's not in the skill. The skill developer doesn't have access to any of that audio. It's just using the normal phone call process, but it feels like there should be a mechanism for me to be able to do that from inside a skill. Like if I'm talking to a restaurant skill, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm just going to go drive over there and pick it up. What's the store number? And they can say, well, here's the number, but would you like us to connect you? Yeah, that'd be awesome. And then it just makes the phone call for you, but it's outside the skill. The skill ends and just goes and makes a phone call. That seems like a reasonable thing to try to accomplish, but that is not possible today. Yeah. Ellen mentions it's kind of like a TEL : link on a web page or in a mobile app where it just launches the default dialer. Same idea.
Yeah.
Liam Sorta on YouTube says, no question, just showing a big heart for all of the great work you folks do. Thank you, Liam. That's very kind. And then Alan said, related to invocation, there was a good question on the Slack about opening a skill versus playing a podcast with the same name. Is there a good way to make sure that the skill is the one that's opened? A part of the invocation phrase that would bias the skill rather than the podcast. The only way that I've really seen to be successful with this is through routines. If you build a routine that says, when I say this, launch this skill, or when I say this, launch this podcast, or whatever, those seem to carry more weight, more priority, because they're default, they're specific to the user. That's their scope. So I've even told my mom this sometimes where she can't remember how to open a certain thing. I'm like, well, what would you say? She's like, well, I want to say this. And I was like, okay, then go build a routine that when you say that, it does the thing. And that has solved the problem for her, because she's basically building hard-coded strings that say, when I say this, do this thing, kind of overriding the Alexa system. I had another interesting conversation with her yesterday where she has a routine set up so that her bedroom lights turn on every night at 6:00 p.m. And then she never knows when she's going to go to bed. So when she gets in bed, she turns her light off manually, or she'll just tell Alexa to turn it off. And she goes, but what I want to do is we're leaving for vacation, and I want it to still turn on at the time at 6:00, but I want it to turn off at like 10:30 every night, so that it still seems like we're home. Which makes total sense to me. For somebody that's in her 70s, I think that makes sense. And so I was like, well, yeah, just create another routine, one that turns the light off at 10:30 every night. And she, like, this blew her mind, because she thought, well, I have a routine that turns the light on. It all has to live in the same routine. It's the same light. And trying to separate those two ideas for her, like, no, just create one that turns it off at 10:30. They have no relationship to each other, actually. And if the light's off, it'll stay off, right? It doesn't matter.
Like the greatest. Look, you can pitch that. You can just say it's the greatest version of the clapper that's ever existed.
It really is.
Like, you remember the clapper? Like, everybody remembers the clapper.
Right. I still remember the song. Let's not do that.
Yeah. I'm not going to do it.
No, please don't.
Don't do it.
All right. So that's a fun little routine story. I think that should be helpful. And again, I'm fairly confident in the ability to create a routine via code. I haven't verified that since we've been talking about it, but I'm pretty sure that is true. Fabio says, I think the Echo Dot should have a battery. I want to use it in a swimming pool. There are a bunch of third-party accessories that you can buy to plug an Echo Dot in to have a battery for it. I don't know that any of them are waterproof, so I don't know how close to the swimming pool you want to get.
My solution to this is my solution. There is, I have an Apple Watch, but there's an iOS app. Is it called Voice in a Can? I was just trying to look it up.
Yeah.
And it works great. I just open up the app and I say, Alexa, go, change the music or whatever. And it just works. And this is waterproof. So I always have this on me. Right. I'm sure there's a Android version of that. Of course, you have to buy a smartwatch in order for that to work.
Yeah.
The other solution I was going to so this is a big problem I've been trying to solve as well. The other thing I was thinking about getting is a talk socket to put on the back of my phone, so I could just take the phone, have this by the pool, not in the pool. Big difference there. Put it by the pool, and I think that would work as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the Watch app, if you guys haven't used it, I think it's only available for Apple Watch, but it's called Voice in a Can. 4 words. It's Voice in a Can.
It works great.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have it on my, I don't have my watch on today, but I do have that app also. One other option, if you can find one, is an Echo Input. It is a device that I don't know if we still make, but you can find them on eBay and other places. The Echo Input is just the microphone piece of an Alexa device. It has no speakers of its own. You can either Bluetooth connect it to speakers of your own, or you can use a 3.5 millimeter cable to plug it into a set of speakers. I have speakers outside on the deck in my backyard. They are outdoor waterproof speakers. They could be speakers that are in the pool. They could be wherever you want them outside. The speakers are there all the time. I have a Bluetooth amp that lives in a safe, dry place. And so all I do is take the Echo Input, take it outside, plug it in. It auto connects via Bluetooth. And now I have an Echo device outside all the time. I still bring it in every time because I'm worried that like it's going to get rained on weird or bugs are going to live in it or whatever. But that's
someone to walk by and say, open the garage door, and then your garage door opens.
Also that. That's why you have a pin on that stuff. But yeah.
Yeah.
So that is that. And then the LinkedIn user says, my Wi-Fi got cut off at the start of Jeff's answer. Just to clarify, I can call my contacts via the Alexa app, but after the call, I want to continue my skill. There is no intent I can write to trigger the Alexa app call contacts function. You are correct in thinking that there is not a function for that today. Correct. I'm going to inquire with the team about why that doesn't exist, because it does feel like we should be able to do that, right? Both sides of it. If I'm in a skill and I want to make a phone call, call a restaurant, call a contact, whatever, it should hand it off to the default calling service, which is outside of my skill. Like make my phone call. And when the phone call hands up, it hands a new directive back to my skill that's like returning from call. And then you could say like, oh, sounds like you're done with your call. Great. Is there anything else I can help you with? Right? Like we do that all the time with ISPs and all sorts of other stuff. So I'm gonna note that one down. It seems like it has to be on our roadmap somewhere, but that feels like it's a pretty low lift. So I'll look into that one. I don't, no promises obviously, but it'd be interesting to see where they're at with that one. All right, we are at time, guys. We're actually over time. We continue to do this overtime thing, which is great because we have so many conversations and people asking incredible questions. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you for the questions. Thank you, Scott and Ryan, for joining me. Of course. And we will be back again next week.
Cool. Bye, everybody.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.